hope this is, please ask questions. Like if I'm going through something and I'm explaining or I'm doing that and you're like, what's that mean or what should you say? Just ask me, I have no problem speaking to something. Or if you do something differently, if you incorporate some other method in your games and you want to share that, please, because this is the whole idea here is it's about kind of getting better at what we do. This is what we're going to do, give you kind of a quick overview of what the content is. A very, very brief introduction, because I think it speaks to where I come from now in terms of TTRPG safety tools. Because being on the internet and talking about TTRPG safety tools, some people love you. I think, God, that's great that you do that. Other people are like, you're ruining the hobby. Like, yes. Okay. But I want to talk about why they matter, how you can use them, particularly in the concept of a session zero. And then I want to show you some safety tools that I use that are really, really wonderful things that make your game better. I ran 3 games this weekend, and in 2 out of the 3, I ran people through a very quick sort of safety tool of we don't have time to talk about your particular triggers or phobias, but if I'm describing something, if I'm engaging with something, or a player at the table is, you just need to make a quick symbol and we stop. There's no questions, no one gets asked anything, we just stop. We take a breath and then we continue and we move through it. That's all it has to be. Didn't do it this morning for the cat game because it was just cats. It was just cats. We were okay, we were just cats. Though I feel,
we're a cat, we don't understand.
I feel we should have for me, because what you did to my poor cat catchers was traumatizing. And then I'm going to share just some advice and things that I've kind of gleaned over the last couple of years, and then recommend some resources. There's a QR code at the end that if you scan, it will bring you to our Discord server where I have all those resources available, because a lot of them are free, and that's the benefit of this. A lot of these things have come from DMs in this space who want to make your games better. And to kind of give a quick overview, I'm doing this for over 20 years. Vast majority of that is as the Dungeon Master. I don't like being a player. I will play in games. Please ask me to play. I will hop in and I will hop out and you'll never hear from me again. But I'm happy to run a game if you need someone to run a game. I started an organization, a small group called D8 Dungeon a couple of years ago, and we podcast and stream. So we have 4 different shows going at the moment, and I DM all of them. Because why not? Yeah, pretty much. One of my big things is I love to write and I love to create and I love to tell stories. And I'm not, like most DMs, I want to explore certain things. I want to see how things feel. I'm a big believer in creating content and then sharing that content, but I also, a big part of my background as a teacher is exploring audience impact and audience reception, and how when I make something that I have an intention in, doesn't matter, people will receive it a very different way. So I'm always aware of how my work might trigger a response. And sometimes I'm looking for people to laugh. Sometimes I'm like, I want you to cry. I want you not to feel bad, but I want you to share in the emotional experience that we're kind of getting out there. I have a tendency in a lot of my games, whether they're for stream or they're for just for fun, to focus on kind of heavy themes or sensitive content. And like my work in Romancing the Dungeon, I mean, it's exploring love in all its forms. What started off as, this is a fun little rom-com that we're gonna do, quickly became, oh, this is group therapy for 5 people who are trying to figure out the complex nature of relationships via the medium of rolling dice. This is healthy. And beyond that, then I look to make sure that there is diversity at my table, and that I am encouraging and making sure that that's a space that anybody feels welcome at. And I'm quite fortunate and quite privileged as a teacher that every year I have different students coming in, and different backgrounds, and different ways of learning, different ways of engaging. So I've been able to take those skills as a teacher and those skills as a dungeon master. I kind of go, oh yeah, these things are basically the same thing. It's herding cats. But I want to make sure that the cats are having fun and feel comfortable in that space. So again, the current work as it is, Beyond Horizon's Edge is exploring the concept of family and found family. Saving Grace is a gothic horror series, and I want to explore the more psychological element, the darker natures of human psyche. Romancing the Dungeon started as a rom-com and quickly became something else. And don't get me wrong, we still do stupid stuff and we still have a lot of fun, but we do touch on quite sensitive themes. And then we have random DMs, which is the most awkward, silly little concept that came into my head. And if anybody here is a DM and wants to get involved, let me know. It's one adventure, pre-made, modular, but every session it's a different DM telling the story. So we're all playing characters. My character is still in the story, but he's telling it from his perspective. And that brings with it a whole ream of issues, because I'm trying, for the first time in my life as a DM, to be wholesome and lovely and wonderful. And then you have a guy who's obsessed with body horror, and you're like, okay, I have issues. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it as DMs and have conversations. So again, my themes: romance, drama, horror, trauma, family, love. And like, I know that's the thing that like D&D, oh, it's just trauma. It is, and we joke about it, and it's funny, but sometimes we leave after a session and we're like, that actually really hurt. And where did that come from? Because I know it's not real, but that's done something. That's struck a nerve. That's hit something. My story tools tend to be based very much in suspense, rising tension, betrayal. I actively encourage player versus player content, like, which I know some DMs are like, oh God, no, the party is the party and they're together, but I'm like, that's not how the real world works, and everybody is self-interested. And
Talking about, if you talk about player versus player, would it be, if it say that your party, your table consists of strangers who just joined together and they don't know each other outside of the game, would it be also advisable for the people, rather than if you were a friend and you play together, even though you have player with player, you know each other well enough to separate between the players and the character, you know, or they're not being
you're not attacking me, you're attacking my character.
Whereas if you're a stranger, people tend to not see the difference, and you're like, you're attacking me this personally.
Yeah, it can be, sometimes it can be very hard, because we invest an awful lot of our times as players into our characters. They kind of are extensions of ourselves in some way or form. Like this is something that I would like to try, or this is a part of me that I think I want to explore or think about. So when something happens to them, it can feel very personal, that this is something I made and you don't like it, or this is something that there's a little bit of me in this person and you reject it or you attack it. Can feel as if someone's coming at you, and it's something that I'm definitely going to be mentioning a little bit soon, actually. But that session 0 is so important. That before, and like I do session 0s before characters are made. Like, it's the first thing you'll get in my player guide of, these are themes and concepts I am considering exploring. Let's have a conversation about those. Are these okay with you? And in essence, in Saving Grace, again, all of it is on our YouTube channel, but Grace is a character. Grace Stormfield was a character I just created, and she existed in the world, and I was like, I feel like she needs some agency. I want to tell her story because she's just done, something's happened to her and she wants to do something about it. So I had a player take her on, and the first thing she had to do, the whole hook was, you have joined this mining camp, and there's somebody in the mining camp, one of the party, I want you to kill them. I am your patron, that is what I require. And everybody in the game, everybody playing, knew that was the thing that was going to happen. We had signed up for it. Doesn't mean it's going to be okay, doesn't mean it's not going to hurt, but we all knew it. What came out of playing Saving Grace with Tendai, Fiona, Eilish, and Amber from D800, who's downstairs as well, it ended up being two of the characters were siblings, and the nature of their characters, they hated Grace. She was kind of everything that they wanted to be, and they resented that because everything seemed to come easier to her. So they hatched their own plan. Well, Declan's kind of said that there's PvP. What if we kill Grace? Then we'll be better than her. And that wasn't anything I had intended, but it came out of conversations. So it was that thing of, and then we were like, but what if they do it? And it's called saving Grace. It's not called sparing Grace or resurrecting Grace. It's called saving Grace. And we had a conversation, and both myself and Tendai, who plays Grace Stormfield, we said, okay, this is part of it. These are the actions, these are consequences to what she's doing. Let's not take that off the table, but let's keep an eye on it. Let's talk about it as we progress through it. And it became vicious. One of the final episodes is Grace confronting one of those sisters, and they fight to the death. It came down to dice rolls. And I'm normally kind of like, oh, this is great, this is wonderful. I'm in the back, oh God, oh, I'm gonna be sick. Oh God, I want to explore this more, but if she dies, I'm doomed. And I'm not in it. I'm just narrating, and I have no one coming. The sister chose to do it at the exact right time. There was nobody around. I was like, a lovely little NPC isn't going to wander in going, I'm going to fix this. I'm like, do I pull back? And I was like, no, because we've talked about it, we've agreed to it, we've engaged with it. Let it run. And again, watch it if you want to find out what happens. But to quickly kind of overview, TTRPG safety rules are not just optional additions to a game, they're essential components that promote a welcoming, respectful, and enjoyable gaming environment. And I'm a big proponent of that because these are the reasons they matter. They ensure player comfort. And it doesn't matter, you might be playing your delicious in dungeon. You might be playing a lovely, simple, we're doing a roguelike game, or we're going into a dungeon and we're just going to explore it and see what happens. But talking about what your expectations as the game master or your expectations as the player are, well, that's going to help the DM kind of, oh, okay, they want to do this. They want to talk more. They want to do more exploring. They want to do some lore building. They want to get engaged in the story. They're not big on combat. That's a session 0. That is talking about what the party wants. And then, and I don't know if anybody was at the TTRPG tribunal earlier on, I made that point about the DM had a request, and I truly, because I was like, I got really animated, but I truly believe that, like, because we tend to kind of, and if everybody in the room is a DM, we do tend to kind of forget that the DM is a player. Like, this is a shared story that we are all engaging in, and the DM is a player, and we have to engage that. It promotes inclusivity. A lot of times people feel like this is a space that they might not be able to get into because there are certain things that they don't like or things that they're not comfortable with. And I always tell players at the start of a game, whether it's a one-shot downstairs or a long-form campaign, I don't need you to do accents. I don't need you. I am not Meryl Streep. Like, I am not an actor. I am not trained. I improv. I do that sort of stuff. But I don't need you to say big words just because you're playing the professor. Like, you speak normally. I don't need you to even speak in character. Do what's comfortable for you. And if you want to tell me that what your character says to me, I will go off of that and I will work to that style. But let's talk about it. What's going to help you come to the table? What's going to help you stay at the table? None of this works unless there's open communication. And that's an honest, you might be kind of going, well, you talk about it, but we have to keep talking about it. And I'm going to come back to that point a couple of times throughout this. Having a conversation, and it can be real awkward. Like, let's just rip that Band-Aid off. I'm not pretending, God, it's great, everyone just opens up wonderfully. Oftentimes, particularly with new players, I'll start with kind of a survey. And there's a wonderful TTRPG safety tools survey that's available for free. It's been created by other DMs, and they've made it completely free. And that's a great way of kind of like outlining things that these players just don't want in the game, things that they don't like. What are their expectations of NPC interaction, PC interaction? And from that, then and there's a question. The last question at the bottom of that is, Are you comfortable with the game master contacting you to discuss any of these things? And even up to that point, it's, no, I don't want to discuss it. These are just things I'm flagging for you. Empowering player agency. During my panel and workshop yesterday, I keep coming back to this idea of player agency. Get the players involved in every aspect of your game. Everything, from the world building to the campaign plotting, get them involved. And get them involved in this. This is not just the DM's responsibility. Everybody at that table is responsible for it being a safe and welcoming, comfortable space to participate in. And lastly, the other thing it does is, and I think maybe not everybody has had this, but occasionally things come up with, I can't believe you did that to my character. I can't believe you'd say something like that. Oh, no, I didn't say it. That was my character. That's not me. That's not the way. This can really help. I'm not saying it fixes it, I'm not saying it makes it go away, but it can curtail a lot of those issues where let's line out very quickly what flies and doesn't fly in our space. And it can be really, really useful as a tool at the start to just offset that. Trust and respect. And I guess lastly, and I'm a big believer in this, and a lot of people kind of go, that's not fun. We're sitting around talking about our feelings. That's what D&D is. I mean, we call it therapy for a reason. We're all sitting around talking about our feelings, and for the record, that feeling is the same feeling of, oh my God, I just slayed the Hydra. Like, I did that. That was the coolest thing ever. That's excitement. That's elation. That's a feeling. And you might not I don't want to talk to the moon goddess about rescuing her lover from the abandoned well. No, I'm not doing that. But there's somebody else in the party who loves that stuff, and they are able to get into that. Your emotions are your emotions, whether it's through roleplay or through the combat or through the mechanics. All of these things are meant to help, not hinder. And I know that I said there were 7 stages, but there is an 8th, and this is my own personal take on it. It matters because safety tools make your games better, hands down. You can give out to me about anything else, you can fight me about anything else. That is the hill I will safely die upon. Safety tools make your games better. And I'm not going to stand up here as well and tell you that I get it right all the time. I do not. I have made mistakes, and I have forgotten to check in. I have characters in my games who are literally built to manipulate. That is, and they don't cast spells, they don't charm people, they don't do anything like that. I just role play it that way. And I mentioned this yesterday when we were talking about player concepts. It's always a little frightening to me after a session how quickly that came to me, how easy it was for me to get into the headspace of somebody that can manipulate and gaslight, and just, thank you, and just add a little fear into that other person. And my players, they always joke about it, that I always kind of say, I feel so bad for what that character did, and they're like, no, Declan, it's not, we all know it's not you. It's the monsters and the mothers that you made that do it to us. It's not you. And I'm like, yes, I'm glad everyone can separate me from that. But sometimes when those things come to me so quickly that I can hurt you very, very quickly, and I can hurt your character very, very quickly, that I'm like, what is that? Is that a bad part of Declan that's coming out through a night hag? And it's always hags. Or moms, and that's just, Freud would have a field day. That is just like, and I was thinking about this earlier on when I was, my mom has a lot to blame for the way I DM, by the way. 7-year-old Declan grew up watching true life movies, and those like, I'm dying and I've got 7 types of cancer and I'm an alcoholic and my husband's left me and the county took my kids, I'm fighting back. I was like, oh God, that's just so emotional. I'm gonna put that in a game when I'm in my 30s. I'm gonna find a way to use this. And I'm sitting there age 7 with my mom, and the both of us are just crying. It's like, this is just so real. And now there's a whole True Life Movies channel, by the way, and that's been blocked. We're not allowed to access that. Has anybody here participated in a session 0? Yeah. Cool. That's they really are a useful thing. How long did the session 0 go on for?
4 hours.
4 hours?
3 hours.
3 hours.
And full session.
Okay.
3 hours.
Yeah, I've been in ones that are a couple of hours long, and then I've been like the length of a whole game session.
Yeah. Where
I've
you?
also been in ones that were 40 minutes or thereabouts.
Yeah.
They were groups that tended to be they played before.
Yes. Yeah. And that does, it kind of expedites things. How many session 0s did you, if it was a campaign or adventure, how many session 0s did you have?
Start of every campaign.
The start? Have you ever had a session 0 in the middle of a campaign?
We had debriefs.
Debriefs, yes, after sessions, a debrief is a great way of doing it. I tend to do session 0s before, during, and after. Because you don't know what's changing for people outside. Like, and it's great if you're friends and you know each other and the game ends and we go to work and we're texting each other and it's like, oh, I'm having just a bad day. Like it's just a bad week. It's actually just a bad month. You know what, 23, write off. The whole 2023 was a write off. But sometimes we can be aware, other times we might not be. People aren't always willing to share. So you don't know when someone comes to the table, has it been an off week? Have they just gotten a text from somebody or has something happened in work or at home, whatever it might be. So what might have been okay at the very start, 6 months in, 3 months in, we don't know what's changed. And it's not that I'm going to go, okay, everybody, unpack the trauma and the damage and let's see how that now maximizes against this chart. Okay, so where are we on this pie chart? Okay, it's a case of, hey, we're halfway through the story, we're halfway through the campaign, we've just had a big thing happen, or we've been at this for a little while. Sometimes for me, it's just a group message saying, just reaching out, checking in, is everybody getting on okay in terms of the story? And I do that for 2 reasons. I do that from am I going in the right direction for you? Is this the story that everybody feels comfortable in and we're enjoying and we're gung-ho for it and we're enjoying all the little side antics and everything else that we're doing? And then secondly, it's if anything has come up or a character is in there or there's a theme or a plot hook that we're on that you are just, no, I don't want that right now, then we yank them and I go in a different direction. And I love that. That's a challenge as a DM. That's never a hindrance and that's never a cut down on your work. That's a challenge and every DM loves a challenge. And finding that like, okay, that's not working. I have to pull that out and I have to put something new in and I have to get them going again. And the session 0 is a really useful way of outlining your campaign. So what I'd like you to do for a second is imagine you get, I can't say a group of friends because when we started Romancing the Dungeon, I knew 2 out of the 4 players at my table. So 2 friends and 2 strangers. You get them together and you say, hey, so I've been going out with someone for 10 years. We were 6 months to the wedding day. I've called it off and I'd like to channel that into a romantic Dungeons and Dragons podcast. You don't know me. You want to play? And we got together and they were like, so what are you doing with it? And I was like, what am I not doing? There's a wedding in the first 3 episodes, so I think I'm really channeling some issues here. And we sat down and we talked about it. And it was that thing of like, so are we gonna have to like flirt with each other? And like, it's like yes, that romancing the dungeon. I'm the dungeon. We're going to have to get very comfortable with this in many different shapes and nothing more fun. And they learned very quickly, which we had to talk about afterwards, let's make Declan flirt with himself. So let's have a gnome artificer flirt with the dwarven merchant snake oil salesman who know each other while who has a Texan accent and she sounds like Rhea Perlman. So switching between that required a debrief where I was like, I don't know what that's awakened in me, but let's talk about it. A session 0, from a storytelling point of view and from a campaign point of view, gets everybody on the same page. This is the theme, this is the idea. I'm not telling you the end, but this is what I'm thinking of doing. This is what we're going to be doing. We're playing Dragon of Icefire Peak. This is what it's about. This is what it's doing. We're playing Call of Strahd. It's Call of Strahd? I was like, Curse. I was like, Call of Strahd. I was like, I think I'm confusing that with Call of Duty. But But that's giving me an idea for something, a Strahd setting in Call of Duty. But it makes sure everybody's on the page. I use session zeros as a great way of inserting the players into that world. So I mentioned this yesterday of, hey, this is the world, this is what we're doing, add to it. I did it yesterday in my one-shot called We Are the Many, where I gave and I never use maps ever because I'm not talented. And Theatre of the Mind is way easier. But I had a piece of graph paper, I had 4 pieces, sellotaped it together really badly, drew a circle in the middle of it, and someone asked me, are those tiny cubes 5 feet? And I was like, I don't know, because if it is, that's a 400-foot fountain. But I drew that, I drew some trees, I drew a really bad river that they thought was a road, and then said, that's it, that's all I'm giving you. This is your village, you build it, because you and the 104 other NPCs have to protect it, not me. I'm coming to destroy it. They won't care about it as much if I build it, but if it's theirs and they add themselves into it, and there wasn't a single shop, but there was a charcuterie board building. And a library built by someone called Barry Berry. And I was like, okay, and is it a library? Yes, okay. It could still be called a library. But it brings them into it. And the other thing it does is it gets everybody engaged. It gets everybody switched on, and it already ramps up okay, this is something that I don't have to be nervous about because I've just been able to say, look, I don't want to do an accent. And maybe halfway through I'll figure it out, or I'll get something and I'll just talk as myself. And that's where I would, as the DM, be like, here are just some things that I don't do at the table. I don't like these things. And I have a particular, it's an attention thing I have. If somebody's at the table is just rolling dice for no reason, and I know some people like that, and it's good for them. It has the opposite for me. So I often kind of say, I will work, like if you need to fidget a little bit, but it's not best for me either to have that constantly, because it makes me I don't know what it is. It's a little bit of just kind of
Distraction?
Maybe, I don't know if it's the sound, I don't know if it's God, they really want to roll. Do I give them something to roll for? Roll perception, I don't know. But it outlines very, very quickly what we should be doing. Establishes tone, and if you don't think about the tone of your game, do. Tone is so important. And like I started yesterday with, it's grim dark. Like there's raiders coming, they're destroying your village. And immediately they're like, I'm turning into a gobbo. And I'm like, okay, there goes that tone, and let's do this, because this is way more fun. And we talk about that. Like it's that conversation of, I'm thinking it's going to be this. Is everybody cool with that? I'd rather we don't do gritty survivalist stuff. I think we should maybe do I don't mind doing kind of like, this is harsh and stuff, but I don't want to get into like Bear Grylls-ing it, if that's okay with you. Do we have to count the arrows? No, like we can set tone through small things. So is it dark or light? Is it funny? Are we going to have funny stuff in it, or is it all funny with a little bit of seriousness? Sets boundaries. And I'm going to talk to you about lines and veils, because these are the boundaries that I use an awful lot. Builds character connections. We sit down and we talk about the characters that we're working on, that we're thinking of, and it's like, oh, let's link. And out of that session 0, 2 people who'd never met decided to be boyfriend and girlfriend, and then they decided over text message, actually we're not boyfriend and girlfriend, we hate each other because you ghosted me. And that I was like, that's brilliant. That's class. Because you've already romanced the dungeon, and now I get to ruin it for you. And I'm going to egg you on. And like, I didn't have to, because they lent into it so massive. And these were 2 strangers. And they quickly, and halfway through the season, because this had been building, so 24 episodes, around episode 13, they've been poking and prodding each other, sometimes under their breath, and they're like, oh, that microphone's going to pick that up. It's like, yes, they do, and I can hear it, and you're all terrible. But they were poking and prodding and just trying to get under each other's skin, and we were like, we need to deal with this. This needs to come out in some way. So they went off and they had a discussion about, let's talk about our lines, our limits, our boundaries. Where can we say that this is where this has to stop? And they worked out a phrase that they knew, they had kind of planned what they were going to say to each other in that sort of, it'll be improv, but these are the 3 beats that I have, and these are the 3 beats that I have. And after that, if we're happy to keep going, we'll keep going. But if I say this, it's over. We then had a discussion, myself and the two players. I informed the other members of our podcast that don't be alarmed. They're going to start shouting. We've talked about it. We're comfortable. Are ye comfortable with it? Yes, let's get this out of the way and start. And we did. And then immediately afterwards, we finished the recording session and they both started crying. Because they were like, I'm so sorry. I really didn't think I was going to be that angry. And they were like, no, like I rose to that and I got angrier at you. But it was that we had that conversation and it just, afterwards, I mean, the characters still hate each other. But I also, to be fair, I did make her warlock patron say, kill him. Kill him and I'll give you 3 levels directly after that. I was like, yeah, I'm not helping this situation either. That's my job in the background. And the other thing I do in a session 0 is I talk about safety tools. I outline key safety tools that you can use. And to kind of run the session 0, outline what's expected. What do I need you as the player? Bring an agenda, a rough outline of what we're going to be doing, what we're going to be talking about. Is this going to be like a session? It's going to be 3 hours. We're just going to talk about the world. We're going to talk about the characters, and we're going to talk about the tone and the theme, and then we're going to do lines and veils. We're going to organize this and get it figured out. I'm going to encourage everybody to participate, and sometimes there might be a person at the table who's not comfortable talking about these things. It doesn't have to happen there, but let's talk over Discord. Let's talk over WhatsApp. Let's figure out what's going to work for you. Your job as the DM is to listen actively. And that's the big difference. It's something I teach straight away. We all listen passively. Actively listening is stopping what you're doing, stop taking notes, stop being on your phone, stop at the laptop, and look at that person as they're telling you what works for them, what they would like to see, and take that in. Because you will, consciously and subconsciously, as you actively listen, you will take that in, and that will filter into your work. Be flexible. That's something I need to get tattooed on myself. But be flexible. Plan as much as you can. And this is something that I've struggled with, particularly where we're making content for an audience. I want to do this because I think this is what the audience will, and away we go with it. And no, we're going to do this over here, actually. And that flexibility still needs to happen. So whether it's for something that you're creating for others to listen to, or if it's for the table, that flexibility, and that goes for the players too. The DM is a player, and they sometimes want to do something, and let's figure that out together. Other thing I would recommend doing is at some point then, before the game starts, documenting agreements, which sounds like, is this a business? Are we doing a business now? Nope. You just need to open up a quick spreadsheet on Google Sheets. Again, sorry, quick spreadsheet. Open up a Google Sheet and use that TTRPG safety toolkit, that lines and veils thing. That makes it really easy to track because people put in their name, their character name, and they fill it in across. And you can see it. You can see how many of the party are up for body horror or how many have a phobia of spiders that don't want them in the thing. I always fill in spiders. I always fill in gore, and I'm like, I'm the first DM to put both of those things in the game if you'll let me, which is awful because I, in Saving Grace, had to play a priest who'd gone insane from living in the mountains too long, who'd fallen in love with a giant silver matriarchal spider, and he was killing the miners that he was meant to be protecting and feeding them to her. I did 2 things in that one episode that I have a great fear of: spiders and public singing. I then sang a song to her before she ate me, which, again, really wonder what would happen if Freud was looking at the way I run games. Yeah?
What's the title of that song?
Oh, I literally, I think it was just called My Silver Queen. Safety tools. So I'm going to just highlight a couple of these and kind of explain how they work. These are the 4 I use most commonly at my games: lines and veils, the X card, script change, and the door policy. And I'm going to just talk specifically about lines and veils, the X card, and the door policy. Script change is a little like the X card, but there's a little more to it. The X card is more immediate, whereas script changing is really useful in terms of, again, if you imagine your game was on a VCR and the stop, play, pause, rewind and fast forward. That idea with script changing. So you can stop the play, you can pause the play, you can rewind if you need to correct, or you can fast forward. But my three that I use at every game are lines and veils, X cards, and door policies. And they're done with the view of making sure that everybody is comfortable at the table. Lines and veils are, has anyone used lines and veils? Yeah. Lines and veils, yeah.
It was called something else, but it was the same idea.
That same idea. Sometimes I think it can be sort of a start and stop. So what some people kind of say is that like, stop if it's happening. If you start it, I won't participate, but I'm happy to have it happen. I just won't engage with it. So lines and veils are that same principle. A line is, this is a hard line in the sand. This is not happening. I don't want to participate in this. I don't want it happening at the table. Please respect that. This is a line that I have. A veil is something, again, that might be difficult for you to participate in, but it can happen. Your character may not participate, but it could also be something that, again, the show is called Romancing the Dungeon. People often go like, is there kissing in it? Like, God, that's gonna be really awkward talking to my mates about kissing each other. Like, and then two characters do kind of get together at one point, and I was like, yeah, we're full on Hallmark channeling this. This is fade to black. We're cutting to the fireplace. I am not sitting here and narratively describing that. No, we're done. Goodbye, fade to black.
Like one of the campaigns that I have, we use the term soft no and hard no.
Yeah.
Hard no means definitely not, I don't want it in it at all. Soft no means something like, okay, there may be a description about this stuff, but I would like, for me, every time we start a new campaign with my group, it's like, okay, what's your hard no, what's your soft no? Hard no is like, oh, this, sexual abuse, blah, blah, blah. And like for me, soft no would be like children
getting killed.
Like say, I'm okay if like we're arriving in the village and then everybody was murdered, including the children. But I don't want the descriptive of children right in front of me being torn. No.
So that's your line and veil as well. It's that thing. And like I have lines that I do not include in any of my games. Like I don't do SA. I don't do torture. Like I generally don't do violence against children. Like that's like there's too much of that in the real world, and I don't want that coming into my games. And it's not that I'm going to pretend that doesn't happen. That's not what I'm about. But this is a space that we're meant to escape to and have fun at. That's not like that might work for a different table and a different DM and a different group of players, but it doesn't work at my table. And if that's what you're looking for, well, then we now know that I'm not the DM and this isn't the table for you. And then nobody has to get upset because it's, oh, okay, cool. That's not the way it works. We outline these at the very, very start, and lines and veils are a really useful tool, particularly in long adventures where it's going to be a couple of sessions, or campaigns where this is going to be an extended thing. The one thing to remember with these is they do go on. We have to think about these afterwards. How to use them, discuss with the group what topics should be established as lines and veils, record these boundaries so everyone is aware and can refer back to them. And how do we then kind of remember what's a line and what's a veil? And that's where the X card comes in as a great way of communicating that. And one of my favorite things with the X card is I don't have to explain why I'm Xing this. I don't have to. It's a line and a veil somewhere, and we don't have to go into it. So it's and it can be. So I've seen it done two ways. I tend to think, just do that, like I pretend you're at Wakanda. I don't mind, but just do something to make an X. And I've seen other GMs have little flashcards that they just hold up, and it's really useful, particularly streaming, where it might not be a thing that you have a lot of room to move, but flip up with that and we're good, I'm out, we're gonna stop. And it can happen at any time, and it's just a discrete thing that can happen that you don't have to kind of go, oh, I don't want to interrupt the game, I don't want to stop them on their flow, I don't want to, but I'm not comfortable, and just by doing that, it triggers something that, okay, there's somebody at the table who's not comfortable, we pause, we acknowledge that the signal has happened, but we don't ask why, because that's not our place. We don't have to ask why is that upsetting you? It's not a big deal. That's only going to make that person feel worse because everybody else is cool with it. You need to be cool with it. No. Really, really useful way, really useful tool to use in one-shots where you might be at a table where people don't know you, don't know your style, don't know how you describe things. And I often say people, I tend to be very descriptive because I'm theatre of the mind. I don't know how long 30 feet is. So yes, you're right beside it. Yeah, I don't know. I teach English literature. I don't teach math or engineering, thank God. But I always tell people that at a one-shot, just that X card works so well because the second you start to be like, oh no, I don't like spiders. I don't like eye stuff. Nobody likes eye stuff. But for some reason, maybe there's a beholder. They're all about the eye. Lots of them.
All of them.
All of them, really. But we don't have to talk about you plunging, elbow deep. X, I'm out, I'm done. Thank you, we're over. That's a lovely image that you made. Thank you, wonderful. I'm going to be dreaming of that. Done. We're X'd, we're out. And that's how we use it for. It provides a very simple and quick way for players to address uncomfortable situations without stopping the flow. And you're like, well, you just said it pauses the game. Yeah, pauses the game. Hell of a lot better than someone sitting there at the table getting upset. Somebody who's going to start maybe crying or shuts down entirely. And you're like, well, you haven't said a word in 2 seconds. You haven't rolled dice for the last 2 hours. That's the game disrupted. So pausing the game is not a disruption to the game. It empowers players to take control of their comfort levels. So it gives that player that thing of like, oh, the DM remembers everything. There's a spreadsheet. My battery's dead and I don't know. Like I don't remember everything. And for full reference, I talked to, again, we've had session zeros, and into the second season of Romancing the Dungeon, I had a particular character be confronted by her mistakes. And this was we don't quite know if this was real, we don't quite know if this was a dream, there's never been really sort of a, what happened? She lost all her power, she lost everything. She became a level 0 character in our world. And she ended up in this space, everyone thought she was dead. And I literally brought out all these people that she's encountered, or we have in her backstory, and I had them talk to her. Some helpful, some hindrances, and some poking her and jabbing her. And again, that assumption I made as the DM was, oh sure, Amber and I talked like a couple of months ago. We're good. I can do this, we're fine, we're used to this now. We've been doing this for the better part of 18 months, and she's my friend, it's great. That made it worse. I'm her friend, and I know where to hit her. I know how to get that character in a bad place. And afterwards, she came to me, and she was like, she goes, I'm not giving out to you, but she said, I'm really upset that was a little, I felt blindsided. And she goes, I knew this was happening. This isn't anything that you didn't tell me. She said, I didn't think it was going to be like that. I didn't think that was it. And my gut reaction, like my gut instinct was to kind of go, oh my God, I'm so sorry, blah, 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 and like try and like deflate what had happened. What I ended up doing was going, I'm sorry, I didn't check in. This is on me. Consider this my lesson learned. This happens again, you have every right to say, I'm not playing with you anymore because you're not checking in, you're not asking. And that I was so fortunate that we came to an understanding, and I made a mistake. I'm not God. I'm not perfect. I'm not the best DM in the world. I made a mistake. I own it. But it's made me a better DM. That's the thing of it. It's made me a much better game master. And every time now where we have a thing, you might kind of go, well, you're letting them know that something bad's happening. No, I'm just letting them ready themselves. I'm just letting them know this could come up. This might be a thing. And you might kind of go, how much worse could it be? Like, how much worse could it get where you have a character about to kill another character? And I was like, well, strap in, Saving Grace Season 2 is starting in March. And that's going to be a whole other bag of cats. But Physical card, if people aren't, maybe there's even mobility issues, and maybe someone hasn't the ability to lift their arms, that physical card could kind of work, even something small, could be really, really useful. That can really, really help. This is the other one I want to mention, and this is something I tell my players at all times, and I wish more GMs said it to their players. The door policy is an agreement between the GM and the player that at any time a player can walk away from the table. And I don't mean just at the session, at the start. At any stage. Like, okay, unless any of you are secret millionaires, in which case, let's talk about investing in my awful, awful games. But unless any of you, this is your full-time job, and if it is, please tell me how. But for most of us, we're working, we're studying, we have families. And there are commitments outside our control. And they can eat into our ability to commit to these games. I'm very, very fortunate. My husband is a very, very understanding person, even though he does not get D&D at all. But we had to have a conversation a couple of months ago. I was like, Declan, it's kind of ridiculous. You have these 4 streams, you're now participating in another one, you organize the 2-day charity event, you go to events, you're running all these things, you're married to D&D, you're not married to me. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm not making time for you. And then I had to turn around to game masters that I was going to be working with to be like, I have to step away for a couple of months, I can focus on my stuff, but I can't commit to yours. And that's the door policy. There might come a time that I have to walk away from the table for 3 months, 5 months, maybe permanently. Have that at the start, that look, I don't need an excuse, I don't need an apology, I just need you to tell me that I have to go, I can't. And we can have a wonderful moment for your character ahead of that there's a reason the character has to go. It's not just, the party had 5, now the party has 4. Okay, and sometimes that works, we can just continue on, but maybe I can give you something before you go. Maybe we can have a letter arrive. Maybe we can have somebody ask you, I need you specifically to join us on this other quest. And for that player leaving, they know that that character is alive. We didn't just bump them off. We didn't put them in a sack and tip them over the bridge. Yeah, come on. The door policy is really, really useful. To implement it, just discuss it at the start of the session 0. Ensure players know that they can return, that we're not bumping you off, we're going to let you come back if you can. It also works for virtual games. This isn't a real door. There you don't have to walk around with one that people walk out with. Virtual games too.
But it's not dramatic.
I know it's not dramatic. Okay, we'll bring something in. Very, very quickly, I just want to highlight a couple of things. Encourage dialogue. These are conversations that have to happen and we have to keep them open. So encourage the dialogue and keep talking about it, that we keep everybody aware. And normalize the use of these things. Yeah, it's real awkward when someone's there doing this at the table, but it's going to be way more useful. It's way easier to use this than to try and console a friend that's upset. So normalize the use of safety tools and just start including them in your games. It's not going to cost you anything. It's actually going to benefit you in a much, much better way. Customize for comfort. Every table is different. We've established that. The way I DM is going to be very different to the way everybody else in this room DMs. But customize to fit the table. Talk about it. Look, there's lines and veils, there's the X card, we have a door policy, we can use script change. What works for you? We'll just do the X card. We don't need to go in, we don't need to fill in surveys, we don't need to, I'll just use this if I'm getting uncomfortable. And that's all it has to be, if that's what everybody at the table is comfortable with. Consent and collaboration. You will see pictures all over the place in the hotel that cosplay is not consent. Neither is signing up to play a TTRPG. I'm making a character and I'm participating and I'm collaborating, but I'm not giving you your consent to do things without talking to me about it. Let's have a conversation about it. And it's just that conversation. And it's not about putting up barriers, it's about setting lines and veils and collaborating. And I promise you, if you do that, your game gets so much better because your players trust you even more. And I do horrible things to my players. And we've talked about it, and the stuff and the stories that have come out of it, I've left the table sometimes and I've gone to have a bit of a cry because it's a thing of that's immense. And we had an NPC die at the start of the first season. Spoilers, I'm not telling you who it was. But her death, I remember it happened, and I talked to another player who was playing a bard, and she's like, I'd love to do something, because I'm leaving the show, and I'd love to do something, and she's like, there's this song that I'd love to sing. And I was like, I don't know if I can hear that, because that's the song that we sung at my grandmother's funeral, and this character reminds me so much of my nana. And we did it, and I bawled uncontrollably. I can't listen to the episode. It's one of my favorite episodes. I listened to it as I edited it, and that's it. I skip it, and I'm like, that's a lovely episode, and there's a song in it, but I'm not ready. Don't worry, she comes back. I'm not like
Your nana?
not my nana. No. Through the form of Marilla, yes, but no. Some really useful resources before I let you go. TTRPG Safety Toolkit by Kiana Shaw and Lauren Bryant Monk. They are and I will make these available to you online anyway, but if you take a photograph or scrap them down, they are the ones that make that really useful toolkit for completing in that spreadsheet. Okay, it's already done for you. You don't have to do the work, but you can customize it. And they want you to download copies of it and upload it to your own drive, and they want you to spread it. That's the whole idea behind their work, and it's a phenomenal piece. Lines and Veils worksheet by John Stravopoulos. It's very, very simple and straightforward. It's a little less comprehensive than the TTRPG Safety Toolkit, but it is there and it is really good, especially if you want to start this dialogue. Consent in Gaming is a free PDF guidebook by Monte Cook Games, and just talking about consent, boundaries, and safety tools in TTRPGs. Again, free. No cost to you or your table. It's a free guide. And Safety Tools by Bree Sheldon it's a lot of what I've covered here. Bree does it way better, but obviously wasn't available. But does it in a really, really wonderful way. There's really good explanations to them, especially if you're going to struggle to explain these concepts. Bree does it in a really useful way. Very, very lastly, if you have questions, I love talking about this stuff. Just don't tell my husband. But I love talking about this stuff. You'll edit that from the video, right? Oh, okay, great. He won't watch it. I'll just say it's D&D, and he won't watch it. You can find me on all social media. I have my own personal account, but I'm useless. I'm really good at the D8 Dungeon social media accounts, but my own one I'm terrible. You can contact me on d8dungeon@gmail.com, but that QR code is to our Discord server, and you'll find me over there as Duvda. I've already had a few people reach out to me about campaigns and stories that they want to write and talk about. And I've had a blast just being able to kind of go, that's such a wicked idea. And would you think of doing this? And they're like, yeah, it doesn't really fit in the world. And I was like, okay, cool. But think about maybe adding it, or thinking about take that and make it fit and find something that works for you. I'm also happy to talk about these safety tools and how you might use them at your table. And my other thing is I'm always up for collaborating. I want to work with more people. I want more people to work with D8 Dungeon. We organize a charity stream every July called D8 Dungeon Drive. It's a 48-hour TTRPG marathon. We run multiple systems with multiple DMs all over the world. And in the last 3 years between our Irish Cancer Society charity events and D8 Dungeon Drive, we've raised just over €10,000 for all these different causes. So if you're a DM and you want to play and you want to get involved, shout us. If you're a TTRPG content creator and you want to promote your stuff, shout at us. We have a talk show on Thursdays that we really want to talk to other people about. So it's not harassment, it's collaboration. So reach out. Okay, you have my consent to reach out. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? Nope. No, I know we're on a second. No, nobody's have questions. I'm going to shout.
I don't have like a question, but just like nice to be pointed out about door policy in it. Because looking at that now, I know that there's certain things that already being applied to the campaign that I'm in, even though I don't know the name of it. Like I said, door policy said last year I had a 5 years break. I was traveling, and I had 3 ongoing campaigns going on. That I said, okay, I'm stepping out for it. For all 3 campaigns, different things were applied. Like one, we just finished the chapter, we're back in the main city, and my character is doing something else while the rest of the group doing the next mission. And the other one is like, okay, I'm stepping out, but my character is still with the party being run by the DM itself, so if they need anybody to check the box or whatever, use my character for that. And the third one is completely finish the campaign but the group is still doing another set of campaigns, so I'm not playing.
Okay.
Then I'm back in June for the next campaign, and I'm joining them. So
Yeah.
that's nice to know that that is a door
Yeah.
policy, even though we don't say it.
Yes,
as door policy.
that's-
So that's 3 different scenarios how you can still step out and return.
Return. Yeah.
Sorry, I just had a really quick question about anonymizing kind of lines and veils.
Yes.
Like, if someone is not comfortable saying what their line or veil is for whatever reason, is there like, do you have any tips for how can the DM still know?
Yeah, that TTRPG safety toolkit can be completely anonymous.
Okay.
Yeah, and like at the moment we're getting ready for the next season of Random DMs, and we're just doing Dragons of Icefire Peak, and it's 5 DMs coming together, very different styles once again, running the same story, and I've played with 3 of them. One of them's returning from the first season of Random DMs, and we're filling it out, and it's all anonymous. And people have flagged things, and it's not my job to guess who at the table has that. I just know now at the table that's the thing that's not happening, and every GM at that table has to abide by that. So it's a clear line. It doesn't matter whose line it is. It's just a clear line, and that's the one thing I would say.
And if it's something like that, it means the DM can also fill it out, and it's just with the
Yeah,
other.
and I always fill it out. Like I make my players fundamentally aware that I'm adding to this, but I'm in charge of my own comfort levels. I put spiders in my games. What an idiot.
So would it be like a secret action as well? Say that if you are on the table saying that, oh, if I put my pencil case and
Yeah.
this one, that is an indicator. Sometimes people doesn't want to say it out loud.
Loud, yeah.
They're comfortable, which is fair enough. So you have a secret, like, Queen Elizabeth, I put my purse on the other hand. Then
I need to go.
pull her out.
I've
Like a
seen
non-verbal
So it's
cue.
non-verbal, so that might be something that agreed upon.
a thing I've
Yeah.
seen. I think I've seen a DM called Omar from Theatre. He turns the character sheet over. If you want to bounce, just turn the character. And I can see it at the table. It's easy when we're in the room. A bit more difficult in virtual tools. So something small.
Virtual tool is private message.
Yes, a DM.
Private
Yeah.
message, the DM will see it, assuming he didn't see the message coming in. Make like, if you have like a big highlight thing or.
Yeah, it can be an issue, I think, when you're streaming. So, like I know some of our
That's where the X
our
comes
DMs
in.
where, yeah, you need something visual on screen because they're not necessarily
Filter.
following the chat.
I just want to say thank you so much to Declan. Thank you all for coming to our AthVentureCon.